Ladies and gentlemen, it's time! Brought to you by Ringside, the best in boxing. It's the Zapata Brand Boxing Podcast. Introducing first, fighting out of the Zapata Brand Studio in Berwick, Pennsylvania. He is an expert in boxing and bagels, George Zapata!
Well, guys, thanks for joining us here on the Zapata Brand Boxing Podcast. And after a busy week of fights, we head towards April 20th, 2024. Devin Haney taking on Ryan Garcia right here in Brooklyn, New York. And who better to have than Kevin Iole from KevinIole.com to give us his preview of the big fight weekend. Kevin, how are you?
I'm doing great, George. Thanks for having me again. Appreciate it. Good to see you.
It's always good to see you, Kevin. And before we get into Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, you were in attendance on a phenomenal weekend of fights at UFC 300. Could you quickly tell me what was it like, the electricity in that building during a Max Holloway knockout?
When Justin Gaethje went face first, I don't know that I've ever at any combat sporting event, boxing, kickboxing, MMA, whatever you want to call it, I don't think I've ever heard a crowd as loud as I heard in that moment at that point. That was just unbelievable. And the way it went down with Holloway pointing to the center of the octagon, Holloway had the fight won, and he could have run around the octagon with his arm in the air. And you've seen a lot of guys do that. Right. Nobody would have had an issue with it, right? But the fact that he said, let's go to the center, and he trades with one of the hardest hitters in the division and knocks him out and knocks him cold. Just an amazing ending to an incredible fight and an incredible night of fights.
Kevin, I got to tell you, I got to give you credit, because initially I thought, not such a great, and you were like, George, this is a stacked card. What is it? And usually cards that you think are hype up really, really good don't really pull up. You have a couple duds here. This was a good show. This was a phenomenal show. And I texted you before the Jamal Hill fight and Pereira fight. I said, I had a gut feeling Hill was going to get knocked out. And the reason why, and I don't know if you felt this, when he started asking for autographs in the back, I said, that's not a good look. I thought there was something with him, but what were your thoughts on that one?
I thought that was just a show of respect, right? Like, I think, and MMA, certainly that level of respect is there. And I think Jamal was just showing respect to Alex when he did that. But you know what? I mean, he had not fought in, what was it, 15 months?
Right.
And now it was more than that, right? Yeah, 15 months.
Right.
So he comes back after that long delay, and you're not fighting just a ranked middleweight. You're fighting a ranked light heavyweight. You're fighting one of the greatest of all time. I mean, what Alex Pereira has done in his short time in MMA has just been phenomenal, and his short period of time in the UFC is incredible. So, the deck was really stacked against Jamal. I thought Jamal would be able to win the fight because he has a more well-rounded game. He has that ground game where, he's a brown belt and he's comfortable on the ground. And I kind of thought, hey, he's going to be able to have more weapons and tools in the fight. But boy, oh boy, Pereira was just phenomenal there.
His resume in the short time, I mean, he's phenomenal. He is really good, really good. But if boxing is going to come up next, they got a tough act to follow here this weekend. But they may be able to pull it off if, like you said before, if Ryan Garcia's head game is there. Ticket sales not the greatest. I don't know if you've heard how they're doing. This might be because of going to be a late walk-up. I don't know. As of right now, ticket sales aren't the greatest. Pay-per-view numbers, I don't know how they're going to come in. What is your opinion right now if you're going into this fight before seeing them in weigh-ins? And God forbid something crazy happens here in the next couple of days. What is your opinion on this fight, and what do you look at for?
Well, I think when the fight was made, I was really excited because Devin Haney is number 4 on my pound for pound list, like KevinIole.com. I love Devin Haney as a fighter. And Garcia was not on my list, but he was a guy that I have considered, being there. He hadn't beaten enough of the top competition to get into the list, but he's a guy that you look at because of his physical skills. And he's 24-1 with 20 knockouts. And he sought out Gervonta Davis. And then he sought out Devin Haney. So, that puts him on my radar as, hey, a serious fighter. But he didn't handle himself as a serious fighter throughout training camp, right? And there's some people that say, oh, you're wrong, Kevin, that he's exposing these, these sexual predators in Hollywood. And maybe that is, I don't think he is, but, I'll even give him that. But how do you answer when we say, what is he talking about when he's saying he's going to give all women Brazilian butt lifts and boob jobs, right? I mean, are you really serious? And then he's talking about dating a Kardashian and all these different things, George. And it just makes me think, what? And the headline on my story today, a study in opposites. You have Devin Haney, who's sitting there, serious intent, focused on the fight, thinking about what he has to do to not only beat Ryan Garcia, but to up his profile and to become one of the greats in the business. And then you got Ryan Garcia out there trying to grow his social media and not really worry about the fight itself. Now, of course, social media is only a microcosm of their lives. And, Garcia, who knows? Maybe Garcia is playing all of us, but I don't see that happen. I think that he's having some kind of meltdown, and I feel bad for him. And I think I hope the New York Athletic Commission looks at him very carefully and does not approve him to fight if there's any question at all about his fitness and his mental aspect of his game, because this is too dangerous a sport to get in if you're not 100% committed to it.
Let me ask you, you brought up a point about Devin Haney, how committed he is to his sport, his craft, and everything, similar to where Floyd Mayweather was back before he fought Arturo Gatti. I think that was the turning point of Floyd Mayweather. He fought Arturo Gatti, beat him senseless, and he propelled his status. Now, what does Devin Haney have to do to get people on board? Because I think he lacks the pop, similar to what Floyd Mayweather did, has unbelievable skill, and he's so dedicated to his craft. What does he have to do to get to that next level where, Money Mayweather level is a next level, but something that could say, this is the guy that we're going to put hitch our wagon to and take it to the next level? What does he have to do?
Well, let's go back, and I'm going to take a little issue with your point about Floyd Mayweather to begin with, that he didn't have the pop. How many times did he knock Diego Corrales down when they fought?
Oh, not a bunch.
Right, 5 times.
Yeah.
And he put him down 5 times. And at the lighter weights, 130, 135, even to a certain degree at 140, which he was only there, just a Gotti fight, right? I mean, he could punch. As he got to welterweight and he fought a couple at 154, he wasn't really that big, and so he lost that. And I also think a little bit, he started fighting more defensively as he got older, and he fought against those bigger guys, right? I think he just was a lot more cautious than he was. But Mayweather, as a young guy, was a really good offensive fighter. And he had pop and he hurt people, right? You didn't see these guys, they said, oh, he couldn't hit, but you didn't see them rushing right at him, right? They knew.
Right.
Devin Haney doesn't have that, right? So Devin Haney doesn't have that boom, that power. I thought as he was a young fighter that we were going to see him grow into that. And I have not seen that yet. He has a little bit of snap, and, you don't want to just, put your hand at your side and stick your chin out and let him hit you, because he'll hurt you. But I don't think that he has that kind of pop that Floyd Mayweather had at those lighter weights, George. So I think he's going to have to win his fights by really creating openings and landing flush, clean shots, and shots that, from angles that people don't see. And those are the ones that, as a fighter, if you don't see it coming, those are the ones that really hurt you.
Geez.
And I think that's what Devin has, that unique ability to do, right? He has an ability to open you up and then, move you in a certain way. Then you don't see a punch coming. He did a great job against Regis Prograis, who I think a lot of people thought that he was going to beat Regis Prograis, but nobody thought he was going to beat Regis Prograis the way he did, right? He went in there and he walked him down. He was pushing Regis Prograis back, right? And he landed the bigger shots in that fight. And I think that, from his standpoint, that is something that he can do. I don't think he's a huge knockout puncher by any stretch of the imagination, but I think if he goes out there and he shows Ryan Garcia what he showed Regis Prograis, it's going to be a long night for Ryan.
Okay, now to your point, Devin Haney not being a big pop right now, can he get to the next level without having a big pop?
I think he can because he's a good enough boxer, right? I think it's going to be tough on him. What happens, in my mind, I always equate it like you're walking a tightrope. So you're trying to go from one end of the circus tent to the other, right? You're on that tightrope. And you can't afford any mistakes when you don't have that. Whereas if you have that little pop, you can make a mistake here and a mistake there, and you can hurt the other guy, and you kind of come back into where, you make up for lost ground. Like Earl Weaver used to say in baseball, there's nothing better than a 3-run home run, right? And I think that's kind of what Devin Haney wished he had. So you have to be perfect. But Haney has shown that he can fight that way, right? He think of the fight with Jorge Linares. He was looking really good. He got dropped in, what was it, the 8th or 9th round. He got back up on his feet and he kept his head about him, and he went back to his boxing. And he boxed really beautifully against Prograis. He had a nice performance against Vasily Lomachenko. I thought Lomachenko deserved to win that fight. It was a close fight, so I'm not, you don't hear me, and I haven't been screaming from the mountains. I said I thought at the time that Lomachenko won the fight, but it was a fight that could have gone either way, and I stand by that now. So I think, Devin, has to just be on top of his game. But George, he's proven that he can do that, right?
Why was this fight in New York?
Nobody seems to know. I mean, I have a feeling that just the Barclays Center said, hey, we need a big event, and they offered money. And, boxing promoters don't think of these kind of things. So Golden Boy, I think if they put this fight in Las Vegas, Devin Haney lives in Las Vegas. He's from San Francisco. Ryan Garcia from Southern California. It's easy for all those people to come to the fight and sell tickets and get a crowd here. And to put it in New York, I think it was just they got a gate, they got a gate. And so that was to me a site fee. And I think
you don't think it was an olive branch from De La Hoya to Canelo?
Oh God, no.
You don't think so?
No.
I just thought maybe because think about it. Maybe he's doing him a favor, saying, we'll take a hit over here. We won't put it here because how many people are going to be flying back and forth in a matter of weeks? They're just really not.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think you're going to get people flying back and forth. But the point being is that if you had it in Las Vegas, they're in different months. I don't think they would have affected each other, right? And I think that would have, Canelo could have had a media workout the week of the Haney Garcia fight for the, Las Vegas media who were in to cover that fight. There would have been now, not that Oscar wanted to help Canelo by any stretch of the imagination with the relationship between them, but I just think it was a site fee that, that brought him to, to Barclays.
But they are working together with the Munguia fight. They have to work together right now.
Right. I mean, Canelo, but that is a PBC fight, right?
Right.
Hoya is the co-promoter of that fight, and he's not going to have a lot of say in what goes on. He can do interviews and he can, but it's like if you own 51.1% of the Philadelphia Phillies, you are running the Philadelphia Phillies, and that's what PBC has in that fight, right? So what De La Hoya says doesn't matter. Now he's going to go out there and he's going to talk and he's going to try to annoy Canelo and he's going to try to pump up Jaime Munguia and do whatever he does, and hey, God bless him. That's what he should do, and maybe he will. But in that case, he's just a co-promoter and he doesn't have any juice on it.
Let's look at the other side of the coin there with Ryan Garcia. Let's say he loses. Predictably, I think he will lose. Okay. Where does he go from here? Do you think this is the end of him as he's going to not mean the end of that's just it? Because there's definitely viable opponents for him afterwards. But is there a lot of steam taken off him after that? Now, yeah. I will say he did go and fight Tank and he did call out Haney. Give him credit on that.
He called out Tank?
So, yeah, that's what I mean.
If you go back, I was at Yahoo Sports. So what was the date? It was July. I have it here written here somewhere. July 16th of 2022. He fought Javier Fortuna in LA. He goes in the ring after knocking Fortuna out, a tough guy. He calls out Tank Davis. And then there was a lot of offers to him. Hey, why don't you take an interim fight and something? Don't take the Tank Davis fight. And he said, I'm fighting Tank Davis, period, end of story. that took balls, and give him credit. He said, I want this guy, I'm ready to beat him, and he took it. And he didn't fool around in training camp. Now, I wrote in my column today talking about that fight, that once he got to the fight, it's almost like he gave up before the fight began, and that was disappointing. I know he got hit with that big body shot, and I know, you get hit in the liver and it freezes you and you can't move for 10 or 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And so you get knocked out, and then you get up and you're fine, right? And it's there. But it didn't look like that's what that was to me. It just looked like, Devin was looking, Ryan was looking, to get out of there. And, I don't think he believed in himself enough in that fight. So if he loses this fight against Haney, especially the way he went out against Davis, and the goofy way he conducted himself during training camp and the build up to this fight, boy, I think it's going to be a hard sell. What promoter would want to bank millions of dollars on Ryan Garcia? He's liable to do what he's done and look where they're at. They had a lower ticket prices last week and make changes. And, you don't sell pay-per-view. You don't sell any appreciable pay-per-views until fight night. And when most of the pay-per-view sales are, George?
Is it during the first
during
part?
the show, after the fight has already started. That's when the overwhelming vast majority of them come, right? And that's why I say open the pay-per-view with a great fight. Don't have two guys you think might make a fight. Put a fight on the pay-per-view card that is a slam dunk fight of the year contender. Look at UFC does, right? How they build their cards up. And UFC's audience is different, so they don't have to do it the same way. But they have all of those fights on those cards. And people, they end the ESPN preliminary the other day with Prohaska versus Rakic. And you knew that was going to be a phenomenal fight. It got a lot of attention. A former champion against a guy who was a top-ranked contender who had been injured, was coming back. You knew it was going to be a fun fight. It's the feature preliminary on ESPN. They're selling the show like crazy on ESPN. Then you put that on, it's like, man, I might as well buy it. And that's what boxing needs to do. Get a really good fight. Like, I've told this story a million times to different people. I'll tell you again, because I think I believe in what I say in this. When Mayweather and De La Hoya was signed to fight in 2007, Richard Schaefer was still at Golden Boy at that point, and he was running things. And I called him and I said, Richard, you should take the Israel Vasquez, Rafael Marquez fight and put it as the opener on the pay-per-view of De La Hoya Mayweather. And Richard is a really smart guy, but he said to me, no, he goes, that's going to be a big money fight. We're going to have to pay too much for that. And it's just not going to work. Well, it turned out that De La Hoya Mayweather set records at the time. It had, what was it, a $200 million
gate
gross. I mean, not gate, gross. It was just incredible, the numbers that they did at that point. It did 2.3 million pay-per-view sales. It was just phenomenal. Had they put that fight on there and been able to show people, holy cow, look at boxing is, people might have come back and might have stayed fans, but it's a one-off for them now because that's the way the boxing promoters have done it for so long.
You know what hurts Ryan Garcia too now, as if he does decide to step away, he's a big with the endorsements and whatever, who's going to touch him? So it was a double-edged sword for him. He went all in, and now you either got to perform or you really hurt yourself in the back end.
I just think that he had bad advice, right? He didn't have people advising him the right way. And he was on the outs with Oscar, and Oscar, like when Oscar was a fighter and Oscar was in his prime, Oscar did a couple things that were perfect. Like Oscar did a lot of bad stuff, and I have criticized him for it. And in his documentary that came out last year, he criticized himself for it. And he had, there was a lot of stuff. But the thing that Oscar did is he always said, who makes the most sense business-wise? What's the best fight to make? And then he made that fight. Oscar never ducked anybody, right? And then he promoted the fight. He went out there and talked about the fight. And he wasn't talking about, giving Brazilian butt lifts and doing, boob jobs. I mean, come on, and I mean, what Ryan was doing. And even, like, I don't think Ryan has any evidence of exploitation, right? If he does, I hope it gets taken care of. But I don't really believe he does. But this isn't the time to talk about it. Talk about the fight. Sell your business. Sell what you're trying to do. De La Hoya used to do that. They're on the outs, so that's one way Oscar can't really give him good advice.
And it's amazing how boxers nowadays don't, they don't promote themselves enough to put it out there. I mean, the best, just by looking at UFC 300 this weekend, it is night and day. The way Dana White runs the show, it is night and day, from the production to the trailers to the interviews. It is not, and then the performances, those come from the fighters. I mean, but for night and day.
Lorenzo Fertitta and Dana White were both big boxing fans. I used to see Dana White. I would go over to watch Mike Tyson train at the Golden Gloves gym, and this was UFC was 1 or 2 years old. Dana had nothing to do with UFC at the time, and I would see him, and he was going to be a trainer, he was going to be a manager of fighters, he was going to be a referee, all these things. But Dana loved boxing. He wanted to be around combat sports, and so when he and Lorenzo decided to partner on the UFC, they said, let's take the things that make boxing great, the big fights, the big moments, and let's blow those up. But then let's take away the bad stuff that we don't like and replace it with the things that we do like. And what was bad was you would get these great fights, but that you would want to see. They wouldn't make them, right? And
right.
So now, is there ever a fight in the UFC that you can sit there and say, I wanted to see and they didn't make it? There might be one, right? Randy Couture against Fedor, we didn't see.
John Jones.
There's a couple fights that we haven't been able to see that maybe we wanted to see, but 97.8% of the time that there's a fight the fans want to see, that fight is made. Right. And if boxing did that, boxing is such a phenomenal sport, and these athletes are so phenomenal. If you give them the stage to shine, they will shine brightly. But yeah, the promoters have to give them that stage. And, I think what's happened is a lot of the managers too are difficult to deal with in there because they ask for unreasonable purses. And so they get these purses that you can't put any other fights on because all the revenue is going to one guy. And
right.
That makes it difficult.
It's difficult to do. So if you were matchmaking Ryan Garcia after this fight, let's say he does say he wants to continue, would a Rolly Romero fight be something that you would consider as one of the options?
So what are we
one to make?
So I'm saying it again,
as the best fight to make for him, because I think they're both coming off 2 losses. They're both a little bit, off the wall. It'd be a great promotion for both of them, and kind of like a loser leave town match in wrestling. Whoever loses.
My thing for Ryan would be first of all to let him get some rest, right? If he loses this fight, give him a little bit of time off, let him rest and recover from it. But I think you go out there, you want to put him in a good fight, right? Because what you want to say is, hey, he is a good fighter. He's one of the best of the best. Is Rolly the fight? Maybe, right? Rolly's a shit talker. Rolly, has won most of his fights. He lost to Davis and Isaac Cruz, not bad guys to lose to. And, Ryan, if Ryan's coming off, he lost to Davis and Devin Haney. Again, not bad guys to lose to. That might be the fight to make. But I think you just want to put him in there with somebody that he's going, to say, send that subliminal message. We believe in this kid, and we think this kid is going to deliver. I think Ryan Garcia has enormous talent, and I do believe, George, that he has the talent to win this fight.
Oh,
but I don't know that he has the mindset to win the fight, and that's the big problem here.
Okay, so you do believe he has the talent to win? Wow. Okay. Wow. I thought he would be a little bit. I don't think he's improved as much. Just in my opinion, I don't think he's improved as much. Not to say that he's slipping, because he's a young kid and he does have power and hand speed, but there's a lot of holes there. Just what I've seen is a lot of holes. Devin Haney is a guy who's going to light that up. And
yeah, I think Haney's, I think part of what it is, you look at the progression Ryan was making when he was at Eddie Reynoso, and that was when, he had solved his mental, at least for a while, you thought he solved some of the mental health problems.
Mm-hmm.
Focused on boxing, and you saw him making big leaps, each fight out. And I think now, he's kind of lost focus. He is interested in being treated like a star, but not because of a star of what he's done in the ring, just a star because he's a handsome guy that, girls like, and that, he has a good smile and people want to see him on social media. That is what Ryan Garcia is today. He's not, and so his progress is stalled. But if you look at the tools and you said, hey, if I'm going to give the greatest trainer of all time these tools, can he build a successful fighter out of it? Hell yeah, he can. Garcia's got good feet. He's got fast hands. He's quick. He's got pop. Good left hook. I think that he's a tough kid. He wants to, he wants to show well. But I think that he's got caught up in being a star, not necessarily a boxing champion.
One quick thing, a little bit off topic as we wrap up here with the Ryan Garcia. Did you happen to catch Jared Anderson over the weekend?
Yes, I did see the Jared Anderson fight.
What'd you think?
Terrible.
Yeah.
I think Murray did not show up. I think that Anderson. How do I say this? I think Anderson is ready for big time guys, but physically, I think he's ready. I don't know that he's emotionally mature enough. Like, look at the trouble he's been in, right? This is some pretty crazy stuff. He was under the influence. He was driving a car. He had a loaded gun. Like, what are you doing? And then he gets out, he gets away from that. And a couple of months later, he's on a police chase where they're going 130 miles an hour. Like, you have a chance. Like, Tyson Fury's going to make, I think, $75 million guaranteed to fight Usyk. And Jared Anderson has to be looking at that and saying, that can be me in the not too distant future. What the hell are you doing going on 170 or 130 mile an hour police chase? Pull the car over, take the freaking ticket and pay, right? You got to make better decisions. And I think it's affecting him as a fighter. I still think he's a phenomenal fighter, and I think he's going to be a big star. But, Bob Arum said to me last week on my preview, George, that I wrote before the fight, I think he's learned his lesson. I think it's pretty clear he has not.
Yeah, and I mean, the guy Jared Anderson has to take a guy like that out. I think you have to. I mean, I know he's holding and carrying on. You got to learn how to get that guy out of there. That guy did not want to fight. That's it might be a learning lesson. I think you're right. I don't think he's mentally prepared for something like this. Now it's time either, shit or get off the pot. You got to kind of make your choice here, because there's only so many, passes you get.
You look at it and you go, he is, he's 6'4" with an 80-something inch reach. He's, 245, 250 pounds. He can hit, he can move. He's a thinking man's fighter in the ring. I mean, he's got everything you want to see that you would say would make him a championship contender. But I think a lot like Ryan Garcia, he wants, like, I did a Zoom interview with him last week and he was freaking miserable. I mean, I asked him nothing. Like, at one point, I didn't put it up. I just said, you know what, screw this guy. I talked to him, and he was, and I put it in my story. If you read my story, I said in the story he was ornery, and I asked him a performance, and he misunderstood my question. And I was asking him about the Charles Martin, and I was saying, hey, you didn't get the finish, but you really, performed good against the most veteran guy that you fought. I'm setting it up to praise him. Oh, that's all you guys want to talk about, and he was just, and I said, well, first of all, people want to talk about that because that was against the most recognizable name you fought, a guy that held an IBF heavyweight championship. So yes, people want to ask you about what it was like when you fought the IBF champion, but it was like, he didn't even allow me the opportunity to finish. He went in with a negative. And this kid, hey, I mean, he doesn't have to like the media, right? Nobody's asking him to, but use the media to your advantage, right? Take advantage of the media. But he lost this opportunity. I still did the story on him, but I said, screw him. I'm not putting the video out, right? Because, he was a dick. And, I just said, I'm not going to, give him that opportunity. But I wrote about him because, he's a supreme talent, and I think he's going to be good. But I will say this, right? I have seen a lot of young guys in the spot that Jared Anderson's in, and some of them just fall off the face of the earth. But there's other ones that recognize their issues and they make it. And I hope he's one of the ones that, recognizes his issues and makes it. And then, who cares, if he drives 130 miles an hour later, have all that money. That's what I want to see from him. I want to see Jared Anderson. Where's I coming up with Ryan Anderson? I want to see Jared Anderson make a ton of money and fight these big fights, and I will be very happy if he does that.
See, that disappoints me about him, because I think the United States here, we need a guy like a Jared Anderson, and if you play your cards right, I think you could, if he played his cards right and used the social media and the media to his advantage, I think he'd be a superstar. He's built like a Greek god.
Yeah.
He's looks like an Anthony Joshua, but here in the United States, the United States need a guy to represent them in a heavyweight division, and that disappoints me. That really does. I thought he was a guy who could have been something. I mean, this weekend fight was a little bit off, but I think he could have been a guy that could have used the media to his advantage instead of doing what he did.
Yeah, no, and I think you look at Anthony Joshua, and Anthony, unified heavyweight champion, Olympic gold medalist, and he has taken a lot of crap from the media over the years, including from me, right? I have been critical of Anthony Joshua because we set such a high standard for him, right? You look at him and he's a guy, too much has been given, much is expected, and he's a guy that much has been given. He's a good-looking kid who's well-spoken, who's intelligent, and he has been, God bless, with enormous power and physical tools. He is good. So as a result, we expect, and so, but he handles the media the right way, right? And he gets the fans behind him, and he gives access to the media, and who wants to talk to Jared Anderson after the way he, when you see him? So he's coming off a Ryan Murray fight where Murray was terrible. I mean, let's give, credit where 97% of the reason that fight was a shitty fight was Murray, right?
Oh God,
not Jared Anderson. But
no,
like you said, I agree a little bit with what you said earlier. Jared could have figured a way to get rid of him. He's still a young guy in development, so he didn't get it done. But freaking, come on, dude. Give us something to work with, and use
fire.
Use the media to your advantage, and show us and show the fans that you care about this and that you want them on your side. And if you do that, people will come back to you. People are forgiving, right? They get mad at you, but they forget too, right? And so I think Jared has the ability to be popular, but it's going to be up to him.
America loves the comeback story. I mean, they'll break you down, but they love building you back up and making you better. They really do. Well, Kevin, what's coming up on KevinIole.com this week? What do you got?
We're going to have mostly UFC 300. I think that's in the past. I have my final UFC 300 farewell written up there today. I have a story on Ryan Garcia and Haney up there today, and it's going to be Haney Garcia week. That's what my coverage is going to be all about.
Good. And this week coming up, your pick, right? Is it Devin Haney?
Devin Haney, and I think he's, I don't know. I don't want to give a round out yet, but I think Haney may stop him late in the fight.
I went with Devin Haney with a stoppage too. I think it's actually going to be between 5 and 8. I think that's about the time where if things get tough for Ryan, you're going to look for a way out. And if you're mentally not ready, you got to check out.
Yeah, Devin is coming to fight, and Devin's coming to put on a show. And I'm not so sure Ryan is, so I think Devin's going to get it done.
Well, once again, Kevin Iole at KevinIole.com. Go to the website. Go to his YouTube channel, Kevin Iole. Pick up a lot of good merchandise there, KevinIole.com. And also, YouTube, Kevin Iole. Kevin, thanks for joining us.
Appreciate you, George. And hey, it was great to meet Dennis.
Oh, Fred's going to love this. Fred's going to absolutely love this. Wherever Fred Sternberg is. Oh, boy. All right.
We hope you're watching, buddy.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Thanks. Take care.
See you, man.
See you, buddy.
Thanks for watching the Zapata Brand Podcast. Please subscribe to the podcast and listen where all podcasts are available.